Welcome in everybody to a brand new NFL position rankings video. Today I will be placing and ranking 90 NFL running backs into tiers. Very much looking forward to discussing this position group. Before we do get started, if you could please show some love for the channel, for the video, and hit that like button down below. I really do appreciate it. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss other NFL tier maker videos and so much more NFL analysis on the channel. But without further ado, let's begin. Per usual, I like to take a minute to discuss what my categories are a little bit so things make more sense as we go. Running back is a position that's a little bit more clear cut. Most of these tiers are your standard elite, great, good, fine, poor, that type of stuff. But we do have some others. We have the ascending category. That's going to be running backs that maybe haven't quite established themselves as full-on, like bona fide starters. Most of these guys likely are going to be rookies or second-year guys that haven't quite gotten that runway yet. I would say, generally speaking, though, these top four tiers especially are going to be players that I would say should be starting in the NFL. Whether it's a young guy that you're betting on to become more of a good, great, or elite type of player, or someone that's already established himself as such. Whereas once we get below the ascending category, this is going to be more RB2 caliber players. Specialists are third down backs, goal line backs, that kind of stuff. Guys that are good at one specific thing, but aren't really, full-time starters, or the old term bell cow. There's not a whole lot of bell cows left in the NFL, but specialists certainly aren't. Then you have interesting prospects. These are different from the ascending guys. Ascending is either like really high drafted guys, but specifically guys that have gotten to play a decent amount, whereas interesting prospects, it's like we really just haven't seen much from them at all, and we're kind of going off of the draft evaluation on those guys. Poor, self-explanatory guys that probably shouldn't even be RB2s, if we're being honest. I don't know how many players from this collection of 90 running backs will even make that list, because that's where I started to cut some names from this template that I did make, by the way. If you want to go make your own lists, the link to this tier maker is in the description below. And then we do have a probably needs to retire category. We'll see what players end up in there as we go. But let's begin. This is sorted alphabetically, which means we get a banger for the first player to talk about. Ameer Abdullah. Everybody loves Ameer Abdullah. No, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time here. I do think he's a very relevant third down back, though. He was good in Las Vegas. He's done some good stuff for the Colts. Obviously, they have Jonathan Taylor. They don't need too much from Abdullah, but he's got good hands and good return guy as well. Like, he's a useful specialist that deserved to crack the relative list of 90 or so of the best running backs in the NFL. Then we have De'Von Achane, his long lost cousin, I guess. But no, jokes aside, De'Von Achane is a big reason I wanted to do this video here this week. Shout out Robert Mays, one of my favorite NFL analysts. I heard him talking about how a lot of times we can overlook it, and he was talking about Will Anderson. We can overlook it when someone's already a good player, but they take that tier jump forward to be more of a great or elite player in the NFL. And sometimes, the media can get caught up and be like, yeah, that guy's already been talked about. We need to discuss the newer toys. Whereas someone like De'Von Achane can sometimes go a little under-discussed, but it needs to be highlighted just how big of a leap he's even taken this year. He's just incredible. You can talk about the stats and the metrics on him backing that up. He already has 42 missed tackles forced this year to 32 last year, and he's at about the same number of attempts. So he's been even shiftier. And, I think it's a combination of actually juking guys out of their shoes, but also like his ability to run with some element of power at 5'8", 190 pounds. It's legit. He actually generates enough momentum with his speed and acceleration to run through arm tackles. And that shows up in his yards after contact, where he was at 2.9 yards after contact last year. He's all the way up to 4.1 this year. He surpassed 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, and we still have another month to go here. He's just everything you could ask for in a lead back, and he's also got 55 receptions on the year as well for another 400 yards there. So he contributes in the receiving game. He's just incredible. And I don't know that I'm quite ready to put him in the elite category. I'm getting closer and closer to that with him, but I do think we're at a point where he deserves to be very much compared to Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Gibbs has established this level of production at a larger clip and over more seasons. I think we probably will have Gibbs in the elite category, but these two guys are very similar in terms of the impacts they have on the offense and the complete skill sets that they're really bringing to the table outside of it's 3rd and 1 and we need you to drive a pile. But that's why they have Ollie Gordon now in Miami to do the one thing that Devon Achane maybe isn't great at, but he is a very good inside runner otherwise. So very impressed by Devon Achane or Devom Achane. Then we have Lakeem Allen. He maybe was at the bottom of the list in terms of guys I considered including here. 7th round pick out of Syracuse. You would see this name if you're familiar with who he is and say, that should be an interesting prospect, a guy that hasn't played a ton in Jacksonville, 7th round pick. I actually am going to put him in the specialist category, though, because his skill set to me coming out was an incredibly high floor 3rd down back, an excellent pass protector with really smooth hands at Syracuse. And early in this season, right out the gate week 1, they actually gave Lakeem Allen a lot of those 3rd down reps. So I actually feel very confident based on what we saw on him in college and then him earning that job right out the gate that, he is kind of is what he is. I don't know that he'll ever be like a starter or anything like that, but does deserve a shout. Obviously has some good backs ahead of him there with Tootin and ETN. It's hard for him to get a lot of playing time. But we're looking at these guys in a vacuum, and even if he hasn't seen a ton of runway, I do view Lakeem Allen as a capable 3rd down option for teams. And then we have Tyler Algier. Like I said, these top 3 tiers especially are guys that I think in a vacuum are starting caliber running backs in the NFL. And with Algier, if the Falcons never decided to draft Bijan Robinson, we're probably talking about Tyler Algier about to finish up his 4th straight 1,000-yard season. You know what I mean? Excellent power runner. There's just a ton of David Montgomery to his game. I really think if he wasn't forced to be an RB2, he could be an RB1. Does he have the explosive ability to be a great or elite running back? No, probably not, but very, very good, very trustworthy power back that I'm very curious to see what his market looks like, because if you're a team that needs a starting running back, Algier might want to hit the market and see what else might be out there, because Atlanta probably isn't going to pay him full-time starter money. But then we have Saquon Barkley. I'm still going to put him in the elite category. Even if Devon Achane is outplaying Saquon this year, I think you guys are smart football fans. We can understand the nuance behind, you can say that Achane is outproducing and even looks a little better than Saquon this year, while also understanding there's a process to this. And Saquon Barkley's resume is incredible, coming off just last year, one of the best RB seasons we've ever seen. Would have broken the rushing record had he played week 18. This year, pretty much everything's down. Missed tackle forced, yards after contact. You're not getting those crazy breakaway runs seemingly every week like they did get last year from him. Yards over expected is another analytic people will use with running backs. That's down with Saquon Barkley. There's no doubt he is on a downward trajectory. I'm still willing to place Saquon in the elite tier. I still see runs this year that tell me that guy is still in there from a physical standpoint. It was always also just going to be hard to repeat exactly what he did last year, regardless of how the team around him played, but the team around him hasn't had the same run blocking and infrastructure to have that type of year. So I still think Saquon's an elite guy, even if we can have some nuance to that conversation. Now, before we grab our next player here, I want to thank Underdog for sponsoring today's video. If you guys think you know your running backs and you want to put your NFL knowledge to the test with a chance to win some money on top of it, well, Underdog has got you covered with that. With their Pick'em contests, where you'll be selecting player stats, higher or lower, anything from rushing yards, rushing plus receiving yards, passing yards, defensive stats, you name it. You pick anywhere from 2 to 8 players, and you hit on all your picks, you get your chance at massive cash prizes. Also coming up in just a few weeks, one of my favorite ways to play on Underdog is Playoff Best Ball, where you get to scratch that itch to do a fantasy draft again and compete in a league. But you also have to consider which teams are going to advance further, not just what players on those teams are going to perform well. So it's a real test of your football knowledge. It's not just football on Underdog either. They have just about every sport you can think of. And right now, if you use code TFG when you sign up, they will give you a bonus match of $75 when you play just your first $5 as well. And you will support my channel in the process. So good luck, everybody. Please do play responsibly and have some fun over at Underdog. But let's get back to our tier maker. The next player, Trey Benson. So I'm going to put Trey Benson in the ascending category here because the interesting prospect is more for guys that just haven't played a whole lot. And to this point, we've seen a decent amount of Trey Benson as an RB2 behind James Conner. It's really a bummer that, so many things have gone wrong with the Cardinals season this year. So many things. One of which is the fact that just as soon as James Conner goes down for the year, so does Trey Benson. Now, he might come back like this week or so. We'll see. But it really is a bummer because Benson, his rookie season was really disappointing, especially for me. I thought he was... I had a Jonathan Taylor comp on Trey Benson as a high-end comp. I had a late first, early second round grade on him. He was my RB1 in the class. And then he goes in the third round, and his rookie season, you can't lie. Like, his vision really held him back. He was really hesitant to pick holes and run with a purpose like he did at Florida State, where his breakaway ability, his missed tackle forced ability was just insane. And we just didn't get as much of that from him in Arizona, just in tiny flashes. You saw the talent in there. This year, I really thought like he was doing a good job when both these backs were healthy at kind of pushing James Conner and earning a larger part of a split backfield there. And then just as soon as he maybe had a chance to break out as a superstar, he goes down. So I do think he's ascending. I think we saw the development in his tape. I think the vision and understanding, I like that term, running with a purpose. I think we saw a lot more to that with Trey Benson, less hesitation, knowing which hole to hit and hitting it hard, leading to results. I think we started to see a lot more of that from Trey Benson, and hopefully in the final months here, we can get some form of positivity out of that Cardinals organization with Trey Benson getting back out there. Tank Bigsby, I think he's fine. That seems to be the definition of Tank Bigsby to me. There's a reason Jacksonville moved on from him, but Philadelphia did need a backup running back. We've seen some good moments from Tank when they've had to turn to him, which hasn't been too much. And he might even be banged up right now, if we're being honest, because I feel like I haven't noticed Tank Bigsby watching an Eagles game in 2 months. So he might even be hurt, but I always thought like he was a one-track running back that's an okay player, but probably not a starting caliber guy. Jacksonville agreed. I think that's a good spot for him. Then we have Bijan Robinson. He is elite, and I'm going to put Bijan above Saquon. This is close enough where we can look at a down year for Saquon, and Bijan having had, an established track record to this point. The stuff he's doing, I know I certainly wasn't messing around when I put a LaDainian Tomlinson comp on this guy. And look, the Falcons have had their issues. There's been games where they're trailing, and there's been games where they can't really throw the ball all that well, and teams are completely dialed in on making sure Bijan Robinson doesn't beat them. And sometimes he still does, like put the Falcons in a position to win. But his ability to make guys miss, it's generational. It really is. He's got breakaway ability. What he's doing as a receiver is really special too. He's the next closest thing to like Christian McCaffrey, I think, in terms of someone that actually lines up as a slot wide receiver and like makes tough catches over the middle of the field and runs wide receiver routes while also being a 3-down feature back or a 4-down feature back in today's era of going for it on 4th down. But yeah, Bijan is going to have a case for being the best running back in the entire NFL when this list is said and done. Then we have Jaden Blue. I guess he's an interesting prospect. I debated splitting this up. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to add a row below here for less interesting prospects, just to kind of signal more of like who I'm betting on and who I'm kind of betting against. I'm not a huge believer in Jaden Blue and his overall skill set. I just think the lack of size and the lack of vision and the lack of a power profile, they're just not good combinations, you know? And you could say, oh, he's the same size as Devon Achane. Well, Achane had just always had better vision and true running ability than Jaden Blue, who's really, like, I think at best you're talking about him as a really explosive specialist as a 3rd down back, but I don't even know how reliable he is there, and he's a problem in pass protection too. So I'm just not a big believer in Jaden Blue, never really was, and I haven't seen enough to really change there. Outside of like, yeah, if you run a jet sweep with him or you want to run a toss and you get it well blocked up, like, yeah, he has speed. That's fun, but there's so much more to this position than just your 40 times. So I'm just not a huge Jaden Blue guy. Jonathan Brooks, he still needs to go in the interesting prospect category. Super talented coming out, was the first running back drafted in his draft and looked good in like the very teeny tiny flashes we saw before he hurts his knee again. Now, what's interesting here is I did read a report on him that he's 100% now, and they're just going to, like, because the Panthers have 2 running backs already, Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle, they're just going to let him get fully healthy, take a full redshirt season because that knee surgery was such a disaster. But he's only going to be, I think, 23 years old next year, and could be a very interesting name this offseason to kind of track, either as it relates to how the Panthers manage the Rico Dowdle contract, because he was just a 1-year deal, or is there a team that believes in Jonathan Brooks? Like, what if the Chiefs threw a 4th-round pick for Jonathan Brooks and you get a healthy Brooks with 2 years left on that rookie deal? He is extremely fascinating to me. Can't put him in the ascending, but he might be at the top of this list. If he can get healthy, we're really in business with him and his skill set. Reminded me a lot of Melvin Gordon coming out of Texas, who was obviously a top 10 back for multiple years in the NFL. Taj Brooks, he's also an interesting prospect to me. Hasn't gotten a lot of run in Cincinnati, but kind of that compact, contact balance style runner. I think he was a 5th-round pick for Cincinnati. I still would like to see what he can bring to the table. And then we have the other Bengals running back here, Chase Brown. I really like Chase Brown. I think he's very much on the fringe of the good and great category. Definitely between Achane and Algier. If we're just eyeing those names, it makes sense that he would be in between those two guys. I don't know. He's a guy I struggle with because there are weeks where I'm like, man, Chase Brown is emerging as a legitimate superstar back in the NFL. And you see the speed and the big playability. And you even see some like tough inside runs from him. And then there's other weeks where you might have vision questions, or maybe some questions with just how much of a power profile he has. Slightly inconsistent for my taste to call him a great back, but he just might end up at the top of the good running back category. Zach Charbonnet, got to put him right behind Tyler Algier there. He obviously splits the workload with Kenneth Walker. And kind of like we said with Chase Brown, like there's some weeks where you really feel Zach Charbonnet's presence. There's other weeks where he'll disappear in games depending on the game script. So I think him in this group makes sense. But man, he feels like he really turned a corner later last season and hasn't really looked back. He is now 7th in the NFL in missed tackle forced rate. He's so tough. There's a reason that even though Kenneth Walker is the exciting, explosive, big play guy, that Charbonnet gets so much of that workload in the backfield because of all the tough runs and how dependable he is. He also, by the way, fun fact, has not fumbled yet in his NFL career, which goes right back to what we were saying about the dependability and the toughness. All right, Nick Chubb, some people might say probably needs to retire. Honestly, you can make a case for it, but he is still playing at an okay level. Like, I think he's a fine backup running back, which is what he's been in Houston. And it's not like Houston has very good run blocking for him to go anywhere anyway. He still has excellent vision. He can kind of churn out some tough runs up the middle. And I'm okay saying he's still a fine running back. Obviously, once upon a time, he was way up there, but this dude's resilient as all hell, and he's battled back from yet another knee injury to still be a functional NFL player. So out of respect for that, I'm going to put him in the fine category. Then we have James Conner. Man, I really hope he's able to bounce back from this season-ending injury, because I think he's been one of the underrated players in the NFL for the last 2 years. I don't have them on hand, but some of the numbers I've read off on James Conner, like in my Cardinals deep dives over the last 2 years, for example, it's kind of eye-opening. Like, James Conner, anytime you look at yards after contact, missed tackles forced, like the key analytic numbers on running backs, James Conner's in the top 5 to 6 consistently over the last 2 years. Like, this guy, I don't know that there's a running back, maybe Derrick Henry, that is the strength per core pound is as rock solid as James Conner. Guys just bounce off of him, that stiff arm. And then his vision is so underrated too. Like, he is so good. You don't think of James Conner as a guy that's going to bounce runs outside and get explosive runs and that kind of stuff, just because he is one of the slower starters in the league. But he actually has just an elite understanding of those contained defenders. And if he just takes a little step inside, it's like he's got a sixth sense to know when that slot corner or that safety has taken a step too far inside. And he's so good at bouncing runs outside and turning what would be 2-yard gains into 10-yard gains and still winning that corner. So he's just so underrated. Obviously, the injury and his age regression is coming for him at some point, but until we see it, I'm not going to drop him quite yet. It's a bummer, but I do still at this point in time want to give James Conner some love as a great running back in the NFL. Then we got James Cook. He right next to Devon Achane. Like, these two guys, very similar kind of career trajectories for me, as guys that went on day 2 of the draft, a ton of speed, were viewed as maybe more, not gadget players, but speedster, thunder and lightning type backs where you probably want to pair them with another guy. And both these guys have been like, nope, we're RB1s. We're great superstars in the NFL. And the way James Cook's vision has developed is so commendable. I mean, he wasn't this good coming into the league. He just wasn't. And he wasn't this good at Georgia, but he's worked at it, and he's become, honestly, as good of a running back as his brother was, and that's saying a lot. He's not quite as big, but he's faster. I mean, these two guys in that AFC East, it's a fun duo to kind of have next to each other. I view these guys very, very similarly. Their skill sets are, I don't want to say identical, but extremely, extremely similar. They're in very different style offenses, but I think they're relatively interchangeable as players. I think I slightly prefer Achane with what he's doing right now, but that's not to take away from James Cook either, obviously. Then we got Blake Corum. I think Blake Corum's ascending. I do. I know he doesn't have like superstar potential probably, though running back can be strange. I think a guy with exceptional contact balance like him, maybe he could be like, I think back to like maybe Ray Rice before all the off-field stuff, Kareem Hunt. There's been guys roughly in this skill set that have become top 5 or 6 running backs in the NFL. But he looks really good this year, one way or another, man. He's getting some big plays for the Rams. He's like fighting his way into the kind of the starting lineup, if you will. Like, he's forcing himself to get carries, to take them away from Kyron Williams, and doing the most with those carries he's getting. I mean, his ability to bounce off of tackles, run like a lot of duo that they run in LA, and then get to that second level and find escape lanes. He's just been a really nice presence for a Rams team that basically everything has gone right for this year. You could even argue for him over Trey Benson, by the way, in that division. There might be some Rams fans saying, give me Blake Corum over Trey Benson, both third round picks in that draft class, by the way. So another kind of division rivalry there. I still would rather have Trey Benson. I just think the upside is so tremendous with him, where it's not likely there with Blake Corum, like we talked about. But two ascending backs there, one way or another. Then we have Isaiah Davis. He's probably shown enough to get out of the prospects tier. I think he's fine. I think probably never, going to have the overall athletic shiftiness and juice to be like anything up here. I wouldn't necessarily say his skill set is ascending. I think he's just, a nice solid RB2, kind of like a Tank Bigsby. I think I'd put him above Nick Chubb. Honestly, I think every time this dude touches the ball, maybe not every time, but there's maybe once every 3 weeks where I'm watching a Jets game and it's like, wow, Isaiah Davis, like he's got it. Like he's a very useful NFL running back. He's got more juice than you would think in a straight line. And he deserves some love in that fine category as a RB2. Ray Davis, I would say likewise, younger player, but generally speaking, every time he touches the ball, he does something good with it. I think I'd actually put Ray Davis above Tank Bigsby. He is, to me, the definition of a very solid RB2, more of a short yardage bruiser type. He's a good thunder to James Cook's lightning, but he's not, to me, quite what like Zach Charbonnet is or what David Montgomery is to Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know that we've quite seen that consistency from Ray Davis. Maybe someday. I'm not quite ready to put him in the ascending category either. I think fine is right for Ray Davis. Amari DiMercado. I just think of John Wick every time. You've been ex-DiMercado'd. I think specialist to me, like he's kind of a big play threat / third down back. You could say he's fine, but these guys have more of a consistency element to them. As more 3-down players or early down, workhorses. I don't think Amari DiMercado has really established himself as that. He's kind of an interesting guy because he's carved out some touches in Arizona, despite, James Conner and Trey Benson being there and all that. Yet, once those guys got injured, it's not like DiMercado really took the bull by the horns and became, much of a feature back for them at all. So I think as a specialist, he's got some talent. I'm going to put him at the top of that specialist list for now. J.K. Dobbins, poor guy just can't stay healthy, man. But I am impressed by his ability to keep this thing going. And until he comes back from an injury and isn't able to run at a good level like he's done, I'm going to keep him in the good category of backs. I think at this stage, I'm going to put him behind Tyler Algier and Zach Charbonnet, even though Dobbins has been more of a workhorse in his respective assignments the last couple of years. But good vision, good tough runner. The physical explosiveness not really there to be anything more than a good back at this point. And another injury not going to help things, but love his resiliency to keep battling back. Deserves some love. Rico Dowdle. He's a tough one because obviously if the only thing we were doing here was watching this year's tape with no previous knowledge of these guys and just trying to rank them off of this year, he's been a great running back this year. What he's doing this year with the energy that he runs with, I've been saying this, but he is Isaiah Pacheco if he had vision. That's what Rico Dowdle is. He's got very good vision, but he weaponizes it with just incredible intensity and power at the running back position. Now, he signed a 1-year, $2.3 million contract as a free agent this year. This came out of nowhere. He doesn't have the typical traits of a top 10 running back in the NFL. Now, you might say, well, James Conner doesn't either. Well, James Conner's been doing this for like 6 years. Rico Dowdle has not. He's breaking through this year. I still would say he's in the good tier for now. If we see an extended run of him playing like this, when we redo this video next year, he might just earn that jump up. But even then, I feel like we've seen Rico slow down a little bit in recent weeks. So I just don't know that that's necessarily coming. I think I'm going to put him above Tyler Algier, who has a similar skill set, but below Chase Brown. You could argue for Dowdle over Chase Brown, but it's a tough one. They're very different runners. Austin Eckler, I'm sorry, this is going to be a probably needs to retire player. I think his ability to bounce back last year, the 2024 season, that good one for Washington, was extremely impressive. When I thought he was done when he left the Chargers. I thought he was completely done. He looked slow and like a shell of his former self. And I was wrong. And I would love to be wrong about this again. But now, 2 more years later, with a season-ending Achilles injury, I really worry that he's going to have the juice left in the tank and that he can stay healthy on top of it. So I know this tier sounds harsh, but it's more just saying, like, I'm not putting him in any of these categories. I can't put him in poor because he's been a good player before this recent Achilles. This is the right category for Austin Eckler, unfortunately. And I really hope that he watches this video and uses that as motivation and proves me wrong. Travis Etienne having a really good year, bounce back year of sorts with Jacksonville, figuring out their run game. It's been really fun to see because, God, Doug Peterson had no idea how to coach a run game. Liam Cohen does. And they're really leaning into Travis Etienne's overall explosive profile. He's pushing up towards that great tier. I'm not quite ready to go there with him, but I'm getting closer and closer the more good games he has. I think with an offense like this, where they're running so much crack toss and wide zone in a way that just didn't happen in Doug Peterson's offenses of old, or even Urban Meyer before that, for the 5 weeks that he was a coach. But it's just so much more fitting for ETN that when you run inside runs with ETN, you get some frustrating bounces outside and some frustrating moments with his vision. But he's heading for a pretty major payday, I would assume, from Jacksonville. I'm going to put him at the top of the good tier. He's threatening great. I'm not quite ready to make that jump quite yet. Then we have his brother, Trevor Etienne. He's an interesting prospect, and I'm going to actually put him above Taj Brooks. Some pre-draft bias there, if you will. I had him just inside the top 10 of my running backs coming out, and Brooks was a little bit behind him there. And the draft played out that way, right? I think Etienne went 4th round, and Brooks was like 5th round, so I think that's fine. But very different players regardless. Trevor Etienne is a speedster, man, and he's got limited touches in Carolina, obviously, because they have 2 really good running backs ahead of him, soon to be 3 if Jonathan Brooks comes back. They've got a nice depth chart there in that running back room. But I think he's shown some nice juice at the NFL level, and maybe even some better runs than he might have expected for a guy that had that true scat back profile. Honestly, I know it sounds crazy, but I didn't see a ton of differences between Trevor Etienne and James Cook coming out of that Georgia team. If you can get similar development from Trevor Etienne, you don't even necessarily need to get James Cook, but could you get maybe a Chase Brown type of player in Trevor Etienne? Yeah, maybe, and he's still very young. Then we have Jerome Ford. I think I would put Jerome Ford in the specialist category, like maybe above DeMercado. I don't think he's just straight up poor, but he's not someone that should get anything more than like 5 touches in a game for me, at least as a running back. He has really impressive straight line speed ability, and you do get the occasional game where you get a good Jerome Ford game. If in previous years, like when they've given him 20 touches a game, like eventually, yeah, you're gonna spring one loose, and that's where his skill set can shine. I think as a specialist for like a big play threat backup, that would be the role for Jerome Ford. Give him screens, give him jet sweeps, give him wide zone runs. He can do that. Between the tackles, some of the worst vision in the entire league, and just doesn't really get the running back position at large when you watch him play. But there is still something to do with this player. Kenneth Gainwell, very good specialist as well. I'm going to put him at the top of this list. And I've been impressed by KG, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster with me for KG because I loved him coming out. Man, I'd have to go back and check, but I think he was my RB4 that year. I think I had a day 2 grade on him. I think I compared him to Austin Eckler. Like, man, I loved him coming out. And then it looked good early. The later days in Philadelphia with elite run blocking, it wasn't there for him for one reason or another. But in Pittsburgh, he has really come through, and it's a very different run scheme where, and I'm almost, in a wide zone oriented offense, we've seen some good running from Gainwell that I maybe would even push him out of just being a specialist now that I talk this out. Let me finish my thought and then we'll get his final placement. But, Philadelphia is much more of a north and south shotgun inside zone running scheme. Pittsburgh is under center, wide zone. And Gainwell's able to use that acceleration to get to the corner. Those cutbacks are there with him. He's just running better than he did in Philadelphia. So it's been a good fit with the run scheme. And then I think he's taken that, extra step as a receiving threat for them. He's made some really impressive catches and making guys miss, picking up tough first downs that the Steelers offense really needs at times, man. Like this Steelers offense has been down bad at points in the season. And it feels like every time Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, not every time, because there's been times where they just drown offensively, but there's been moments where it's like, man, Pittsburgh really needs this 3rd and 8 conversion here, and he'll take that swing pass or the screen or the check down and make a guy miss and keep a drive alive. I'm going to put him in the fine category. I could even argue for ascending because he's been a good fit in Pittsburgh. But I think I'm going to put him actually above his, kind of predecessor, if you will, or replacement, whichever that makes sense for. But I think, Tank Bigsby, obviously the RB2 in Philly now, where KG was last year. I think I'm going to actually put him at the top of the fine category. And he is technically ascending. It's just kind of a weird player to put into that category. Yeah, I feel relatively solid about that. Could definitely put him here and be just fine with that too. But we'll keep him in the fine category. Then we have Jahmyr Gibbs. He's elite, man. He is absolutely elite. And I said it when the Lions drafted him. I was critical of this pick. I wish I wasn't in hindsight. But I said, if this is going to be worth it, he basically has to be what my high-end pro comp on him was, and that was Jamal Charles. I was like, he's got to be Jamal Charles and not Aaron Jones. Like, if you're going to spend they moved down from 6, went to 12, and then took a running back. I'm like, if you're going to do that on a smaller back, he's got to be, a bit of an outlier in terms of players at that size. And he has been that. Full credit to the Lions and Gibbs. I have no bad words to say. I mean, he's just insane. And with Bijan in that same draft, I don't think it's crazy if you wanted to argue that Gibbs is actually better than Bijan. I'm even thinking about it. I mean, dude, when he touches the ball, defenses just don't know what to do with themselves at times. Like, he just breaks angles, and then when he wins those angles, he's off to the races. He's breaking tackles at a higher level than I ever thought he would coming out of Alabama. I mean, the fact that his missed tackle force rate is at 26%, Bijan's at 30%. The fact that he's that close to Bijan when that's Bijan's like bread and butter, like, defining trait. The fact that Gibbs is that close to Bijan and brings all the explosive element stuff, I never thought I would do this pre-draft. I think I'm going to put Jahmyr Gibbs above Bijan, and it hurts me a little bit to do that because I freaking love Bijan. But dude, Gibbs just he's playing like a Hall of Fame talent right now. It's unbelievable how good this dude is, and I'm curious what people think about that one. I could really see an argument either way, and these guys are very different styles, but I think that's where I'm going to land right now. Then we have Antonio Gibson. I did want to include him here. I mean, he's an underrated player. I thought so coming out of the tape from last season where, I mean, I think Patriots fans would agree, like, not everybody was watching the Patriots last year because they were a tough watch, but there were times last year, there's probably 4 games last year where I audibly said, watching games on Sunday, okay, Antonio Gibson, like what the hell? Like he made some insane plays last year and did some of that this year too. Like he's got a ton of talent. Obviously the injury this year sucks. I think as a specialist, like he's a better version of what we talked about with Jerome Ford. I think that works for me. Big play guy, like him in the screen game or catching passes on third down or as a return guy. There's a lot to like with Antonio Gibson. Not the most complete back in terms of vision and all that, but nice player. DJ Giddens, I actually have become less and less interested with DJ Giddens. He was an interesting prospect where like he kind of just did everything well, but nothing at an incredible level. He's a good athlete for sure. This is one of those that's a little bit harder to explain. But I'm just not really betting on DJ Giddens personally. Would love to be wrong about that. I just don't know that he is a good enough overall guy to be anything more than like an RB3. I guess I would love to hear what you guys think about DJ Giddens, but that's where I'm at with him. Ollie Gordon, I'm actually going to put him in the specialist category, and I like what we see from him. Now he has some potential to be a little more than this for sure. Like you could argue the ascending category, and a fascinating background where he was a highly ranked running back, and then his final year at Oklahoma State was really a disappointment. But he has, at least for as a floor, really established himself as a capable short yardage goal line back and the perfect complement to Devon Achane. I said this earlier, but Gordon does the one thing Achane can't really do with his skill set, and that is go in there and goal line or 4th and 1 and just provide that, ability to outmuscle the defense, to drive the pile and get just a yard if that's all you need. He's still young. If he were to get a larger workload, maybe we're talking about him starting to ascend. I think we've seen some good stuff from him. But just to really highlight what he does for the Dolphins, and until proven otherwise, that is what he is. I'm going to put him in the specialist category as a goal line type of guy. Isaac Garendo, I would actually say interesting prospect because for some reason he's kind of been benched in San Francisco. They go and trade for Brian Robinson. They seemingly didn't really want to give this guy a chance. I think I'm going to put him behind Jonathan Brooks. He's got a lot of potential. I've always seen a lot of kind of Raheem Mostert to his game with that straight line speed, the wide zone running ability, and we saw that last year when he got those flashes. But there is a lack of overall diversity to his skill set where he's kind of a wide zone only runner. And I think the Niners maybe like to be a little bit more moldable and call some counter and gap stuff as a changeup. And maybe they aren't as comfortable with Garendo and those types of runs. He is a very slow starter. He's not great at hitting those shorter area holes. So still an interesting player for me, but he's definitely trending down in a sense. Breece Hall, very good year, man. I think I'm going to put Breece in the great category. He looks back to me because early in his career, this is what he was. And then he had some injuries. Last year with Aaron Rodgers, I mean, God, that was a really bad year from Breece Hall. There was so many legitimate conversations about, and we're still here today. He doesn't have a contract. I think the Jets will pay him at this point with how he's bounced back from last year. But dude, number one, just as a runner, he didn't look explosive. And then you had so many mental miscues, whether it was drops in the receiving game or pass protection issues. Like, man, he's just really settled down as back to what he looked like earlier in his career as a complete 3-down player. And there's been games this year for the Jets where you kind of look back on it like, man, where would they be without Breece Hall this year? So I think he deserves to go in the great category. Amarian Hampton, pretty easy here. He goes right at the top of the ascending category. First round pick this year. He's looked really good after I thought he in the first couple games with the Chargers had the same problem Trey Benson had, actually. Ironic with him sitting right next to him there. But where he just wasn't quite trusting it, wasn't quite hitting holes hard. Much quicker coaching and adjustments from Hampton, though, as opposed to Benson, where it maybe took a full offseason to show that. Very quickly by, week 3, it felt like Hampton kind of got it. And then he goes down with the injury just as he started to look good. And I thought he looked good in his return this week. So definitely an ascending guy with great potential for real. Then we have Najee Harris. Tough injury this year, but has otherwise been very tough, very durable. I still really like Najee Harris, and I thought he looked really good for the Chargers. I think I'm going to put him above Tyler Algier and behind Rico Dowdle. I think he's going to hit the market. There's really no reason for the Chargers to bring him back with how Kamani Vidal has played with Hampton. But I still think Najee, if you want a 230-pound back that makes guys miss and can consistently get you 5 yards at a time, like that, there's a team that could really use a Najee Harris out there. Then we have RJ Harvey. He's had some explosive runs, and he's had a bunch of other runs where it's like, wait, where are you going, man? He's having to see a large workload now with J.K. Dobbins going down. I don't know that he's necessarily taken the bull by the horns and blown you away. Honestly, to me, if we're just talking about who the player is, what his skill set is, and rip away his current, opportunity from a team that spent a second round pick on him and then had their starter, who had beat him out, get injured. I still think we're talking about RJ Harvey as an interesting prospect. Near the top of this list, like I'll put him above Isaac Guerrero, behind Jonathan Brooks. But I feel like a lot of the concerns with him being very bounce heavy, not uber reliable in terms of getting what's consistently blocked up. He's an explosive type of, almost specialist of sorts, right? Like I think you could certainly put him in the specialist category with someone like Amari DiMercato or Antonio Gibson. They want him to be more than that. I'm gonna put him in the interesting prospect category. I'm very curious what you guys think about RJ Harvey there and what you've seen from him in his rookie season. TreVeyon Henderson. If we did this like 5 weeks ago, we'd be pretty hard on TreVeyon as kind of like we just were on RJ Harvey, saying, you know what, he hasn't even really shown to be a good player yet. But I think he absolutely goes in the ascending category now. I'm going to put him above Trey Benson and behind Amarian Hampton. He is things have really clicked for him. And this is what I always said on TreVeyon Henderson. I know I've come off as a Henderson hater coming out. I questioned this pick. I didn't fully hate it, but I was like, it's just not who I would have taken there if I'm New England. I compared him to James Cook in the sense of like, I need to see that vision get better if he's going to be worth being a second round pick. And I think we've seen as the season's gone on, the vision has improved. There's still some issues there, but man, it's been pretty night and day from the last month of TreVeyon Henderson versus the first 2 months, where first 2 months, it's like, they can't put him on the field. Like he can't hit a lane. He's not really making guys miss because he's so hesitant as a runner. His tape was everything I was concerned about coming out. And it really impacted his effectiveness. Now, NFL coaching can go a long way, and tape study can go a long way. And depending on how much work Henderson is putting in behind the scenes to work at this kind of stuff, that development can happen sooner rather than later. And I think we're seeing that. So that's excellent news for the Patriots. And he's been so much more than just a third down back and an explosive play threat. He's actually navigated between the tackles on some of these tough runs. What was it? Was it the Jets Thursday night football game where he had like 3 touchdowns? Some of those were just really good, savvy runs that he just wasn't. I mean, I honestly don't think that's what he was at Ohio State, and it wasn't what he was for the first 2 months of his time as a Patriot. But again, really good to see that. He's absolutely ascending and deserves his love. All right, Derrick Henry. I mean, I think behind Saquon makes sense. It's a little bit of a different combo because he's older, right? On the wrong side of 30 for sure. It just hasn't been a good year for Derrick Henry. You do still see those breakaway runs are in there, and the Ravens they've been going through it this year. Both these superstar backs that had amazing years last year on their first year with their new teams. Both these guys have had kind of a similar narrative with the surrounding cast just hasn't been quite as good, and they themselves haven't been quite as good. So he's trending downwards. He's no longer King Henry. He's no longer in consideration for who the best running back in the NFL is. Certainly could make an argument that he needs to come down. If you're just assessing how he's playing this year, he's not been as good as James Cook and Devon Achane. I don't think those guys are in, I don't think Derrick Henry's been in as advantageous of a opportunity as those guys have been with the scheme that Achane plays in being perfect for him, and the run blocking in Buffalo is very good. I think both Saquon and Henry are very tough guys to rank because it's a small sample size sport. Just last year, both these guys balled out to such an incredible degree. It just depends on how much you want to tank them for their struggles, their relative struggles this year. They've still been good players. Then we have Justice Hill, specialist to me, third down specialist, one of the better ones in the league. Very good pass catcher, very good, running third down runs out of shotgun. I'm actually going to put him at the top of this specialist category. Underrated player. I mean, he's the perfect player where you put him in on a 3rd and 10 and just call a draw. Or a screen, but you call a draw and hope he can get 7 yards on it with the intent of going for it on 4th down. But there's times where they might do that. He makes a guy miss and takes it for 30 yards. He's a very useful player for a certain skill set. He's injured right now, so recency bias. We don't remember Justice Hill quite as well, but he has certainly turned into an underrated player. I think they gave him a contract extension before this year. I could be wrong about that. Okay, Chuba Hubbard. I mean, it's interesting. I think I put him right behind Rico Dowdle, who's kind of stolen Chuba Hubbard's thunder this year after Chuba was the guy worthy of hype and excitement in Carolina last year. Both these guys are so similar overall products at running back. Dowdle's a little bit more batshit crazy, whereas Hubbard's a little more nuanced in his physical running style, I would say. But overall, these are really good north and south backs that can catch the ball on 3rd down. The fact that they have two of these guys is a real luxury. And even in their last game against the Rams, Chuba actually maybe, I guess if this were a boxing match, kind of swung back above Rico Dowdle. He definitely outran Rico Dowdle, who, Chuba had 17 carries for 83 yards. Dowdle had 18 for 58. But they're just a very fun duo, man. I think Dowdle, the highs he's shown this year, you put him above Chuba, but next to each other is fun and makes sense to me. Then we got Kareem Hunt. He's fine being asked to do a little bit more than you should with him. I think I would put him... I think I'd rather have Ray Davis in that situation. I think there's a little more juice with Kareem Hunt, but physical runner. We know what Kareem Hunt is at this point in his career, and we know that the Chiefs probably regret not going after Breece Hall and finding a little bit more for their run game there. I think that's coming this offseason as a priority for them. Jarquez Hunter, he's an interesting prospect. I would put him above Taj Brooks and behind Trevor Etienne. Good straight line guy. I saw a lot of Tank Bigsby, both Auburn guys, kind of slashing one-cut runners with a little bit of speed. So we'll put him in the interesting prospect category. Not a lot of opportunities coming his way anytime soon with those two backs ahead of him in LA. Then we have Bucky Irving. Bucky's great to me, and I'm going to put him above Breece Hall and behind James Cook. He's just such an impressive overall player. His ability to get this amount of production, this level of play as a tier 2 back out of his physical profile, it's incredible. And to me, it's two things. It's his overall understanding of the position, his vision, and toughness that some guys just don't have. A lot of guys don't have it, certainly to his degree. And then he has, to me, continued to bulk up whatever he can on his frame. And he has a much stronger base than I think he even did at Oregon. And really that you would expect from a guy listed at 5'10", 195. I watch Bucky Irving, and he plays more like he's 5'9", 210 to me. I don't know what his real playing weight is, but I think he's underrated in the sense of that contact balance. The power he gets from his lower half is really impressive, and he's going to consistently be in the top 5 or so backs in missed tackle force rate with how good he is. And then the jump cuts and the shiftiness. This dude on screens is just insane. So Bucky's phenomenal. Wish I was higher on him in the draft coming out. I just had my hesitations with that physical profile. I mean, it was dangerously poor. His size plus athletic testing, the fact that he's overcome that, it's just, I can't really say enough about it. Then we have Josh Jacobs. I think there were moments last year where he was threatening the elite conversation as a back. I think he's come back down a little bit this year. He's still an excellent player coming off a really good couple of games against Detroit and Green Bay. He's playing his best ball late in the year as weather gets colder. Obviously Detroit's indoors, but outdoor cold weather game. Good time to, play his best ball against Chicago, but he is the perfect fit for Green Bay. It's been such a slam dunk signing. I think, as a tier 2 back, I put him behind Achane and Cook, but near the top of this list as a top 10 back in the NFL, it feels a very cozy spot for Josh Jacobs for me. Then Ashton Ginty, I think you got to just put him in the ascending category. He hasn't had the opportunity this year to prove that he's a genuinely good running back. Now, would I take him over all of these guys in the good category if we were drafting from scratch? Yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong there. I would take him over some of these great backs because his potential is just so incredible. But unfortunately, man, he just hasn't been very productive. And until the Raiders can get their damn act together, we can't get as excited about Ashton Ginty as we deserve as football fans, because Ginty is just such a fun player to watch. He's like some diabolical combination of Bijan Robinson and Marshawn Lynch. But yeah, sadly, we got to just put him in the ascending category until the Raiders allow us to see otherwise. Okay, Caleb Johnson, 3rd round pick out of Iowa. He goes in the interesting prospects category. I'm going to put him, I still believe in him. I'm actually going to put him above RJ Harvey. Pittsburgh, as we know, tends to be very, short-tempered and impatient with rookies. They're kind of that old school mentality. And early in the year, he botches a return. He has a fumble. Even just as it felt like he was maybe starting to earn some carries, in the Bengals game, he has kind of a rookie moment where he grabs a guy's face mask, like full grab, and he gets penalized for a face mask. Feels like every time he tries to get something started, he makes a mental mistake, and then he gets put in the doghouse. I think a different organization would be a little more understanding with a really talented young player that this guy can help you if you help him develop. But I think that, I just don't know that they're coaching this guy the right way and giving him the right confidence that he needs as a young back. But, besides that, I still think you're talking about a guy with really impressive straight line ability. He did have a lack of stop-start, skills as an athlete, as a running back at Iowa. He needs to be in a wide zone oriented offense, but he is in one in Pittsburgh. It's just, he's gotten 26 carries this season, and usually it's only 1 or 2 a game. So I still do believe in him. I think year 2 could bring some much better stuff from Caleb Johnson, but it also doesn't help that Jalen Warren has taken another leap as a player as well. But then we have Ty Johnson, deserves to go on here in the specialist category. He is one of the better receiving backs in the league, and I'm actually going to put him at the very top of that specialist list. He makes some really incredible catches for Josh Allen. A lot of times, like in scramble drill, he's the guy that works with him to get open, so deserves some love there. Aaron Jones, so many injuries, but I still think he's a good running back. I'm going to put him above J.K. Dobbins, but below Zach Charbonnet. I don't really have too much left to add. He's incrementally regressing from a physical standpoint, but it's really more just availability for him has become such a major concern. He's trending towards the end of his career and the probably needs to retire category, but he's not quite there yet. So I'm still going to have him as a good running back. James Jordan for the Niners. I think that's my second typo of the day there. I don't think that's how you spell his last name, but either way, he was their yearly mid-round pick on a running back that they very quickly decide that apparently they never wanted to begin with. But he's a savvy, kind of patient, Kyren Williams style of running back. It's unlikely that he'll ever be as good as Kyren Williams, but I still think he's an interesting prospect. I think I like him more than Hunter and Taj Brooks. These rookie running backs that are interesting that haven't played a ton yet. I kind of just default to my draft evals on them, and I think we've got those guys ordered appropriately. I might have had Taj Brooks ahead of Jarquez Hunter. I can't quite remember. Very different style backs either way. Then we got Quinshon Judkins. So he's a little different than like Hampton, who hasn't had as many opportunities due to his injuries, and Ginty, who hasn't had the opportunities due to the complete and utter lack of run blocking on the team he plays for. Even if Judkins is also a rookie, and if I were redrafting from scratch, I'd still probably lean on Ginty and Hampton. I do think Judkins deserves more to go into that good category because he's actually had more of an opportunity to prove that he is that guy, if that makes sense. So I am going to put him in tier 3, and I think I'm going to put him above Tyler Algier and behind Najee Harris. No, I'm going to put him above Najee. I think he looks really good in Cleveland. I really like Judkins coming out for his combination of vision, burst, and power. There's honestly a lot of Nick Chubb in his game. I didn't make that pro comp with him coming out. I wish I would have made that connection because the play style just makes so much sense. It makes so much sense why they liked him so much. I think we've really seen those flashes, and it's not like he's got an amazing run blocking in Cleveland either. Their offensive line is not what it used to be. But then you got Alvin Kamara. I think him right next to Aaron Jones makes sense as a guy that can still play as a capable back that's starting to deal with some injury stuff. The availability's been less and less, and he's definitely on the downward trajectory, but I'm going to put him above Aaron Jones there. Then we got Bam Knight. You could argue for him as a prospect, but we have actually seen a decent amount of Donovan Knight here. You go back to a few years ago when he looked like an undrafted steal for the Jets. Now for the Cardinals, he's kind of edged out a lot of those Amari DiMercato carries. I think we mostly know what he is, kind of like a running back on his old team, Isaiah Davis. He's a nice north and south hard-nosed runner, nothing more, nothing less. And I'm going to put him in that fine category as a decent backup running back to have on your team. Marshawn Lloyd for the Packers, who does still exist, apparently. He's played, I think, in one NFL game since being a third-round pick 2 years ago. He, to me, goes in the less interesting prospect category. If he ever gets on the field, I would be interested, but I already didn't love him as a prospect to begin with. He was an older back coming out that had very serious concerns about his vision. He does have some juice, theoretically, depending on how well he's recovered from his injuries, and an opportunity in Green Bay to get some touches and maybe can get healthy down the stretch here and show us a little something. But at this point, I'm just not really betting on Marshawn Lloyd to be an impact for Green Bay. Okay, Woody Marks. I thought for sure this guy was going to settle in as kind of a Justice Hill-esque figure, a receiving specialist, but he's kind of had to do more for Houston because of that running back room and the injuries to Joe Mixon. And he's passed a lot of tests and checked a lot of boxes that you didn't really see from him at USC. He's shown some decent inside running, some power profile in there, some good ability on wide zone and toss plays. Honestly, like Kenneth Gainwell comes to my mind with Woody Marks as kind of what he's bringing to his football team. I could put him in the ascending category. I'm getting there, but that inclines that I think he's going to be a true starting caliber running back. Those other 5 backs, I'm much more willing to bet on them that they will get to that group. I still think Woody Marks is unlikely to be a top 32 running back in the NFL. One of those things that's a little bit harder to explain, and maybe I am just too attached to this rookie's pre-draft profile where I just saw more of a one-dimensional type of back. I'm going to put him right there next to Kenneth Gainwell. I will put him above Kenneth Gainwell because I think he's shown even more as an inside runner than like Kenneth Gainwell, but he's a tough one for me. I just want to say I've been impressed and going to keep thinking about this player as he gets more and more opportunities in Houston. Let's move on to Jordan Mason. I think Mason's a good running back. The definition of it. Not more, not less. I think I'm going to put him at the bottom of this group. I think there's been some moments with him running inside zone where you don't always see the patience from him. You can see him just sometimes he just bolts right into the back of his lineman. Sometimes he does get a little too bounce happy to try to do what he does best, which is like on outside zone where he gets that speed train mentality. He's not a perfect overall back, and he's not the shiftiest overall player in terms of agility and change of direction, but very good north and south runner with explosiveness. Deserves to go in that tier 3. Then we have Christian McCaffrey. He's still an elite running back. I think since the injuries last year, he doesn't quite have the explosiveness, the elite of the elite high-end ability that he did just a couple years ago. But his efficiency is still really good. What he does in the receiving game is still as valuable as it ever was. And he just, the vision and the toughness, the ability to, it feels like he consistently churns out 7-yard, 8-yard runs for this team. The long drives that this offense is able to sustain is, I don't want to say the only reason, but it kind of is the only reason the Niners are winning games in the way that at the rate that they are, because they have this formula, right? Where they're going to bleed out the clock. They're going to have these 13 play drives that allow their defense to stay fresh. It keeps the score down. It gets you to the end of the game. It gives you efficient offense. If they ended up with a bunch of 3-and-outs and a different style, I think their defense would run out of gas and look a lot worse than they do right now with the lack of talent they have with those injuries. And their ability to sustain those long drives, it's pretty much all Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you obviously have Kittle, helps too, but the ability to keep them ahead of the chains, and then a lot of these third downs, he's converting as well, whether it is a run or through the receiving game. So I still think he's a tier 1 running back, even if some of that juice isn't what it used to be. Then we got Jeremy McNichols. Dude, Jeremy McNichols is super underrated. I said it in the preseason that, look, I love Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I think you should target him in your dynasty leagues. I think some of the hype is justified, but even Jeremy McNichols has looked really good when he's touched the football, and that's continued this year. With him being such a vet in a crowded running back room, we don't see a large workload from him. But do you want to know who leads the NFL in missed tackle forced rate? It's Jeremy McNichols, by a full 3%, by the way. And anybody that watched him touch the football last year saw that on tape too. So he's interesting to me. I can't put him in the ascending category because he's 30 years old, and this might be the best we see from him, and maybe it likely is. But he's a really nice RB2. I think I'm actually going to put him at the top of this fine category. Really underrated player. He's a big reason our next guy here, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, hasn't gotten the workload that a lot of people maybe want to see from him. And there's another back in the equation here too, coming down the list in Chris Rodriguez. Man, I think with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, he actually needs to go down to the interesting prospect category. It looked like he was going to be more up there with like Trey Benson, Travion Henderson as the ascending starting caliber guys. I don't think he's there yet. I think we have seen some really questionable vision from him that has lost him his starting job. I think that's what it is. A lot of those runs where he is just bolting into the back of his lineman, it's like, slow down, dude, read it out. And I think if that development comes, he has a really rare ability to change gears. I've talked about this in previous shows, but he can be a short strider when he needs to be in those compact areas to navigate and find tough yardage. And he can broaden his strides and pull away and have the breakaway ability too. It's not normal for a human to have that ability to shift gears like that. So I do like him. I think you have to put him above Caleb Johnson as well because he's shown more. And honestly, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt never should have been drafted as late as he was. But there's some stuff to work on. I think, it's been a frustrating second half of the year for the Bill Merritt fan club, which, I'm a part of the fan club. I love the draft pick, hyped him up earlier in the year, but I do think the hype just went a little bit too far with him. Like in a dynasty league, I flipped Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt for like Jalen Warren, for example. I was like, kind of turned into a point where even though I have Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt because I knew to draft him in the 4th round in Dynasty, I still felt like the hype maybe had gone too far and was able to kind of capitalize on it. You know what I'm saying? So like, I feel like I've kind of, I can't say I've turned into a Bill Merritt hater, but I've kind of pushed back on him a little bit throughout the course of the season at times. But the point I'm trying to make here is that now the hype is cooling off. People are maybe forgetting about him a little bit. I could see like a post-hype sleeper season for Bill Merritt next year where some of these vets are out of the picture a little bit more. I don't know if McNichols will be back with the team or not. I think Washington's going to go with more of a youth movement approach. I could see next year with an offseason of development, he kind of recaptures that hype into next year. But for now, I think needs to go in the interesting prospect category. Along with Kendre Miller, by the way, who's now heading into year 4. Really tough injury. I'm going to actually put him right next to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I'm actually going to put him above Krosky-Merritt. We'll see how well he can respond from the injury, but I've never been the biggest fan of Kendre Miller until this year. His ability to make guys miss in the limited sample size we saw from him, his explosiveness, it is a bummer that he got hurt because the Saints are starting to figure some things out. Devon Vele in the mix, Tyler Shuck with this offense. I could have seen a world where, Kendre Miller really takes advantage of an opportunity this year with a fading Kamara and kind of becomes a stud for them, but the injury derailed that. So he's interesting to me. There's a lot of contact balance and shiftiness as a runner with a lot of talent there. So we'll see where that goes in the future. Keaton Mitchell, I think at this point I put him in the specialist category, and I'm going to put him, he's a little tough because from a talent perspective, I honestly, I think like right behind like Chase Brown. Like you just asked, if you could guarantee me that Keaton Mitchell could stay healthy, I think number one, he would have had a much larger production level to this point in his career. So this wouldn't seem as crazy. But if you could promise me he stays healthy, I know that this guy can ball. And he's very similar from a talent perspective to what we talk about with Achane and Cook, where they're not the biggest guy, but they actually do break tackles to help them get to that 3rd level where they do have that breakaway speed. But it's that speed that helps him break tackles. But unfortunately, his body just keeps betraying him. And shit, man. He went into the locker room this week in the middle of the game after another good run. Maybe he does need to retire. I don't know. But I think I just put him in the specialist category where he kind of like what we did with Jerome Ford, Amari DeMarcado. These are big play threat backs that at this point are never going to be feature backs in your offense, starting running backs. But in the weeks that he's healthy, you want to use him and put him in opportunities with I think, wide trap and pin and pull and outside zone and draws and screens and those plays that can get him out in space where he can pull away and have massive home run hitting ability. But I do think he's better than Jerome Ford. I think he's better than Gordon and Gibson. I'm going to put him, just out of respect for his talent, I'm going to put him at the top of the specialist tier. Joe Mixon. I'm worried, man. I think everybody's worried about the injuries that have racked up with him over his career, the foot injuries. It's too early to say he probably needs to retire. He goes with that cluster of Kamara and Jones and J.K. Dobbins. I think he goes at the top of that cluster. He's just really tough to even put on a list like this because, man, when he was healthy for the Texans last year, I thought he was playing the best football he's ever played. I mean, talk about a guy, like we said with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, that can change gears and be a savvy, shifty inside zone runner, but then open up his stride length and have breakaway run ability. Just so impressed by what he did with Houston. And God, how bad have they missed his presence in the run game? It was evident that in a similar offense last year with very poor run blocking, with and without Joe Mixon, it was night and day. So you're talking about a high-end running back with explosive ability that legitimately elevated his run game last year. I just don't know where he's at. And I would be much more comfortable to just leave him off the list entirely. But I'm going to show some courage here and actually rank him. I think he's just more talented than Kamara and Jones and J.K. Dobbins. And we have James Conner up here, who's also dealing with a big injury right now. I'm going to wait to see what he looks like coming back. And there's still an off chance he comes back for this playoff run for the Texans and plays at this level. And if that happens, that Super Bowl potential narrative on Houston only gets better and better and better. I think he's been very underrated from the moment he got to Houston. Was probably underrated before that even. But it's tough too because like those last couple years in Cincy, it looked like he was maybe done. So he is very dangerous. Like he is on the cliff looking down at the end of his career. I just don't know how much runway he has left. Then we have Kyle Monangai. I mean, he's a very nice young player. Where we put him on this list, I think what we said with like Judkins, he's gotten the opportunity to show what he can do. I think Monangai has shown what he can do. And I think you look at Monangai, very Tyler Algier-esque, late round back that runs his ass off with good size. I think I'm going to put him at the bottom of the good category. Still a decent amount to prove there. And some of these guys that he has a chance to jump. But, I know there's another running back coming up in Cam Scatterbo. Let's just do him right now. Kind of a similar overall idea where, yeah, he's shown us he's a starting caliber back in the NFL. Scatterbo's did even more. I think Scatterbo goes even above Judkins for what he did, and I really hope he's able to make a full recovery. One of the most fun players to watch in the league this year. It was just so devastating when Cam Scatterbo got hurt, but he really does have a rare ability. Who he really reminds me of is Kareem Hunt when he was in his prime. Does he have a ton of breakaway ability? Not really, unless defenders just take a bunch of bad angles and Scatterbo, breaks 3 tackles on the play, which can happen. So you will get some breakaway ability, but does he have breakaway speed? No. But you're going to get explosive plays and the down-to-down consistency from him with his vision, with his, contact balance. It's just remarkable. And there's very few players in the league that have like better true trucking ability to just run through defenders, get those tough yardage when he needs to. Really a special player. It feels weird to have these guys over Ashton Jinty, who I know that guy is in there. And the more and more I think about this as we have added some rookies into this category, I think we need a little more nuance here. We're gonna go with the same color coding, so they're blended in here. We're just gonna say established good young backs. Love adding the nuance here, and that's where I'm gonna do Jinty. I'm gonna do Scatterbo. We're gonna have Monangai in here. We're gonna put Judkins in here. I think that blends things together better. The only remaining question is, do we put Hampton in that category too? Whereas Hampton has actually shown at least some bad games in there, but they were right away early in the season. You know what I'm saying? Like, there really has never been a hesitation with these four names where it's like right from the get-go, yep, those guys can play. Hampton, it was a little bit more, slower start. He's also only played in 6 games. I think Hampton and Henderson still need to clear that hurdle, along with like Trey Benson, who you can almost look at like a rookie based on his playing time. Whereas these guys, it's been more green lights. And Ginty's just so talented. Like, Ginty's talent, he's in the worst situation. You want to drop him into the, a different category, that's fine. I'm such a believer in Ginty's talent that I'm willing to take that leap with him. Though calling it established makes it a little bit hard, but we'll leave it. Okay, David Montgomery, very good back still. Not quite what he was last year, not quite as efficient, but, I think him right by Chuba, Najee, Tyler Algier. I think that's where I'm going to put him, behind Chuba and above Najee. Still has some good runs in there, though. He's definitely on the back 9, and he's not on the 10th or 11th hole either. He's taken a lot of a beating in his career. Raheem Mostert, this is definitely probably needs to retire player. I didn't think he was good in his final year in Miami, and certainly hasn't been in the environment in Las Vegas that we've talked about. Devin Neal, very interesting prospect to me. I'm going to put him behind RJ Harvey in the interesting prospect category. He started to get some playing time for the Saints, and I think he's shown what he showed at Kansas. Good, hard-nosed runner with incredible vision. There was a lot of that kind of James Conner-esque skill set where he's just a big, strong dude that understands the position. If he becomes a starter, is he going to be maybe the slowest starting running back in the NFL? Yes, but he can still be very efficient at all the other important things at the running back position. And I like what we've seen to this point. Then we have Isaiah Pacheco, written inversely by me for some reason. But I think Pacheco at this point is fine. And I'm actually going to put him below Tank Bigsby, ahead of Isaiah Davis. Fun player, right? North and South runner, runs as hard as anybody other than maybe Rico Dowdle, but just doesn't have a lick of vision. And it just reduces his consistency. There's a reason that they have been hesitant to give him the full workload there, because there's just so many frustrating moments. There's very few frustrating things as a coach is when you call a run play on a first down or second down and it's well blocked and you get -2 yards on it, or you run into the back of your guys and you get 2 yards on it, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 7 or 2nd and 12 and you're behind the chains. And the explosiveness is fun, but negative plays that shouldn't happen are inversely as important. And that holds him back. Samaje Perine, very good specialist. I'm going to put him right behind Ty Johnson. He still has had some good, tough runs for the Bengals. He's one of the best pass protectors in the entire league. Very smooth hands. He's been a very established, high-end third down back for a long time that nobody talks about. Then we got Tony Pollard. Good timing for us to do this video this week, because Tony Pollard finally looked like last year's version of Tony Pollard in his most recent game against Cleveland. Was a big reason why Tennessee was able to win that game. So I still think he's a good back. I don't think he's too high on this list because he has shown some real issues this year. I think I'm going to put him below Zach Charbonnet and above Alvin Kamara there in the good tier. Then we have Brian Robinson Jr. I would say he's more of an RB2 fine player. I'll put him at the top of that list because he is one of the better RB2s in the entire league, but not someone I would really trust as a full-time starter. We saw, he's more of a one-track athlete, has some power, but just not the most complete back. So that feels like the perfect definition of a fine RB2 type of guy. Chris Rodriguez, good tough runner. I think he goes in the interesting prospect category. While he's above Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt right now, I'm still more interested in Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, but for similar reasons to like Devin Neal or even like James Jordan, I still think Chris Rodriguez has potential in a Tyler Algier type of way. Like he's got the size, vision, toughness you look for. I prefer Devin Neal to him, but I'm still interested in his trajectory as well, just behind Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt there. Merritt just has the higher upside. Dylan Sampson, he also needs to go in the interesting prospect category. He's had some explosive plays, and then he's had other moments where he's a little underwhelming with his overall running ability and some mental mistakes. I think I put him below Devin Neal and above Chris Rodriguez. Will Shipley, another interesting prospect for me. I think you look right at Trevor Etienne as a similar overall type of guy, smaller back, a lot of juice, very promising third down capabilities, just not very proven yet. Has had some other guys ahead of him. Shipley, I thought, showed some flashes through the preseason and into week 1, but then they went and got Tank Bigsby, and we haven't seen much Will Shipley. So for me, still an interesting prospect, but I do like Will Shipley. I cautiously compared him to NFL Reggie Bush coming out. I had a 4th round grade on him coming out of Clemson. High praise given that name, but Reggie Bush's pro career was okay. That was the best case scenario for Will Shipley. I still think there's something like that with a really explosive, complementary kind of scat back type. Then we got Devin Singletary. He's fine. Not a whole lot to say on Devin Singletary. Good contact balance, kind of like a Jeremy McNichols. He's not a bad player at all. He's just not someone you want to be your starter because there's just really no traits there at all. So I will put him near the top of the fine category, but I'm actually, just to kind of make a point about just how good Jeremy McNichols has looked in the limited looks he's got in Washington, I'm actually going to put McNichols above Singletary. Then we have Brashard Smith. He also goes in the interesting prospect category, right with those names we were just talking about with Shipley and Etienne. I think because he's in such a great environment with an opportunity in Kansas City, if we're talking about how much we believe in these guys, I would put him above Shipley and Etienne. I think these guys all have some subtle differences, but Smith was a really talented player coming out who just is new to the running back position. If he can just get some semblance of vision where if you run him from the gun occasionally and he can more consistently pick the right hole and make something out of it, you're going to be in business. But right now, like, he's a pure receiving back for them. But definitely a lot of shiftiness and only in the second year of his career as a running back. So very fascinating player. Then we have Tyjae Spears. Honestly, I'm going to put Spears in the ascending category. This is his 3rd year. He's been behind Tony Pollard and Derrick Henry before that. He's kind of similar to Blake Corum in that sense where he's got a guy ahead of him. But I think he's playing really good ball this year. And I know he's someone that there's a lot of questions on if he can take a full workload and that kind of stuff. But some of these other backs aren't like full workload guys either necessarily. Like some of these guys are in split backfields and are still in the good category, even all the way up to like Devon Achane, James Cook. Those guys aren't going to get 300, carries for you every year. James Cook might get 300 this year. I don't know how sustainable that is long-term for a smaller back, but regardless, I still really like Tyjae Spears. I think he can be in this category if he gets the opportunities. And that's the same deal with Trey Benson, Blake Corum, and other rookies as well, who need a little more development. So I like him in that spot. And I'm going to put him above. Honestly, I think he's currently, Spears is still a better player than Henderson. Might not quite have the potential, but that's an interesting player to rank. I'm curious what you guys think of that one in the comments down below. Then we have Ramondre Stevenson. Hasn't been the best calendar year for Stevenson. Got the big contract last offseason, looked incredible to start the year for New England, and then he's had just outrageous fumbling issues. We're really trending towards him being more of an RB2 fine caliber guy, even if They're paying him more than that on that contract. I think I'm ready to do that. And now we've seen some injuries pile up. He can get back into this category if he can get things back on track, but now he's got Travion Henderson really gunning for his job. So I'm going to put him in the fine category, actually. And I've defended Stevenson a lot over the years, but I think it's time we be more realistic about who he is, or at least I be more realistic about who he is. DeAndre Swift. Oh, DeAndre Swift. What do we do with you? Looking really good the last few weeks, running hard. But there's been moments this year as well where it's like so clear that Kyle Monunga is the better back, and Swift and his vision issues just show up. I think he's been good enough this year with plenty of really exciting games that he can go in this group, but not terribly high. I will put him above Dobbins and Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones, Kamara. You know, him and Pollard, that's probably where you stop with Swift. I think Pollard's more of a consistent overall player, and if you swapped, like, I don't think Swift would look good in Tennessee at all, and I think Pollard would look really good in Chicago, so I think that's where I'm going to stop with Swift. Does deserve some credit for running hard these last few weeks and buying in to a more physical brand of running the football in Chicago than he did the last time he had Ben Johnson in Detroit. All right, Jonathan Taylor, obviously elite. Right now there's a clear three for these running backs in the league right now. And what's fun is they're all very different styles. I do think Taylor might bring the best combination of both Bijan and Gibbs, while he's maybe not as savvy and shifty as Robinson, and not as fast and explosive as Gibbs. He does have more explosive playability than Bijan and better between the tackles consistency than Gibbs. So it's kind of just like pick your poison with these three, honestly. If you any order of those top three, I would be happy with. I want to make that clear as day, and I struggle with this. I think, man, I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna have to trust my gut on this one. I think I'm gonna put. Oh man, I am in a tornado of thoughts right now. I feel like I'm wrong whatever I do, and I'm right whatever I do. I think I'm gonna put him. I'm gonna put JT behind Gibbs and Bijan, and I hate myself for it. Let me know in the comments down below. How would you order the top three? And do you think it's as hard as I think it is? All right, we're getting towards the end here. Tyrone Tracy, I think he's fine. At this point, he's gotten a lot of opportunities. He's kind of like how I feel about Woody Marks overall, where there's some explosive playability, there's some tough runs in there, screens and outside zone and that kind of stuff. I think he can be really good in that category, but is he going to be the consistent physical between the tackles runner that you're always looking for? He's had a lot of just ball security issues, whether it's drops or fumbles throughout his time. I know he's still new to the position. He's got physical talent to like there, but I think overall him as an RB2 is probably where he lands. Sean Tucker just might be the most interesting of the interesting prospects, and maybe he even needs to go up into the ascending category, but even more than like Jonathan Brooks. I mean, dude, Sean Tucker, who's the RB3 in that room, rightfully so. I think Rachaad White's on there. I was going to say I might have forgotten about Rachaad White here. But dude, this guy, and I don't put this lightly, when he gets rolling, he looks like Jonathan Taylor as that 220-pound back out in space that's just an absolute workhorse. We haven't seen enough from him to know exactly what he is in terms of the consistency with his vision and, what run schemes is he best at and all that stuff. But God, am I fascinated to see if someone makes a phone call about Sean Tucker to, make him a bigger part of their offense. I would be very, very intrigued. A lot of talent there. And never should have gone undrafted, by the way. There was something going on. My understanding on why Sean Tucker went undrafted when he should have been a third or a fourth round pick, is that I don't think teams loved the way that he and his camp responded to their requests regarding his injury. Mostly speculation on that. We're well beyond it at this point, but I don't think we have any really concerns about Sean Tucker at this point, so it's okay bringing it up. But I guess I'm saying that to point out, like, it's just silly that he went undrafted. Like, I don't think there's really red flags there with him. It's more of just we're waiting to see him get freed from Tampa Bay. Then we have Byshell Tootin. I'm going to put him in the ascending group. Similar to Blake Corum, honestly, where third round pick, or Tootin might have been like the second pick in the fourth round or whatever, but similar draft range, good talent. I mean, Tootin has even more talent than Corum, a lot of just speed and contact balance. He's been a really fun fit as well in an offense that's just good at getting him out in space. I don't know if there's a perfect pro comp for him. You know, I see a little Joe Mixon, I see a little Chase Brown, but definitely someone on the rise with a lot of potential. And, you know, if they retain ETN and Tootin keeps getting better with his vision, because there are some moments where he needs to see it better, just like we've talked about with a lot of these guys, like Hampton early, Henderson, Benson. The Jags could have a really freaking dynamic running back duo there. And then Kamani Vidal, one of my biggest draft victory laps in the last couple of years. I have banged the drum and banged the drum and banged the drum. Even when they took a Marion Hampton, it was like, I get it, but God, I'm pissed because I just want to see what Kamani Vidal can do. And it wasn't even that it was a bad pick on Hampton or anything like that. It's just, I have not really understood why the Chargers have been so reluctant to give Kamani Vidal these opportunities, but they were forced. I mean, they cut this dude. They are so lucky. The Chargers are so lucky that nobody picked up Kamani Vidal when they cut him out of camp. But he sticks around, gets the opportunity, and he is so good, man. He is somewhere in the middle of this tier 3. You know, I think I'd put him above Najee, maybe. It's tough, you know, he's still proven what he can do. In a way, he probably should go in the established good young backs. You know, if I'm being realistic about it, like he still has gotten about as many touches on his career as like Quinshon Judkins and Kyle Monungai. And like I said, this tier, this established good young backs, these guys blend in. You know, they blend in where Ginty might go here and Scatterboo might go here and Vidal might go here. You know what I'm saying? So it's all blended in there. So Vidal needs to go in the established good young backs category. And I'm gonna put him behind Judkins, but ahead of Kyle Monungai. But he very quickly might be landing as the best RB2 in the league. And, you know, maybe things do get interesting depending on how much Hampton develops and proves, where Vidal's actually the 1 and Hampton's the 2. I don't know. But dude, he at 5'9", 210 plus pounds, to have the contact balance, the breakaway speed, the vision's been really good with him. He's great in the receiving game. What is not to like about Kamani Vidal? I think there's, you know, he's faster than Bucky Irving. There's not a perfect pro comp for him. I mean, honestly, him and Byshell Tootin have a lot of similarities in their skill set, but definitely excited to see Vidal do what he's doing this year. And it's been a big win for me on this channel because I thought I was crazy at times for how much I defended him as I think a third round grade, the 4th or 5th running back in that draft, and being pretty hard on the Chargers for not giving him a harder look over the last couple of years, but their hand has been forced, and man, has he looked good. Okay, Kenneth Walker, he's a good back, and I feel like just putting him right next to Zach Charbonnet just feels right to me. He's a tough one because there's times where you watch Kenneth Walker and you're like, oh, that's one of the 5 best running backs in the league. Like, you can't tackle this guy, and he's fast. And then there's other games where it's just like, that's DeAndre Swift. Like, he doesn't really know where he's going. He's taken a perfectly good 6-yard run and turning it into a negative 3-yard run. And I talked about how frustrating those can be for a coordinator. So he hasn't been able to get over the hump. He also has injury concerns. From a pure talent perspective, I think he's probably more like right here. We don't have to put him next to Zach Charbonnet. I think I'm going to put him behind Chuba and above David Montgomery. Okay, Jaylen Warren. Really nice year for Warren. He goes up here as well. And pretty high up here. I'm just really impressed. I mean, what can't Jaylen Warren do? He's run inside zone systems. He's run outside zone systems at this point. I think he's good in every run concept. He's great in the receiving game. I wrongfully said that he was not the best pass protector. I said that in the Steelers deep dive. Steelers fans, I'm sorry. You came at me for it, and I was open to the idea that I was wrong on that because I was largely going off the PFF grades where, they didn't like, he was like the second worst pass blocking grade in the league last year. Maybe not the most reliable of PFF's grades to depend on there. Just being transparent about this, but I've been paying attention to his pass blocking reps since Steelers fans said you're wrong about that, and you guys are right. He's a very good pass protector. So what can't he do? He's a very complete, very good player. And honestly, this might not be high enough. I think, it's hard because like, I kind of like him more than Chase Brown. I do. Do I just have Chase Brown too high here? Chase Brown might be too high. Bengals fans aren't going to like that, but just kind of looking at this order feels better to me. With Warren, then the two Panthers guys, then Kenneth Walker, who has some similar frustrations to Chase Brown. But then Chase Brown. I think that's why that looked off to me. So a new order in the good category. Getting to the very end here, Rachaad White. For a while I viewed him as a specialist, as a third down back only. I think he is a good back. Him and Jordan Mason towards the bottom of that tier work for me. He's impressed me in his ability to be a more diverse runner outside of just running draws. I think his vision's improved, but more importantly, his toughness as a runner. Ever since Bucky Irving has been like gunning for his job, I think you've seen Rachaad White really put the pedal to the metal and put his head down. So he's a good overall player for sure. Then we have Javonte Williams. What a year Javonte's having, reclaiming his abilities as a very capable, good starting running back. I think above David Montgomery and behind Chase Brown works for me as a very complete physical runner. Kyren Williams. I'm pretty high on Kyren, and I have been for a while. I don't think he's been quite as good this year as he was the last couple of years, but still very good. I think he's a great running back. I think he's a tier 2 back, and kind of similar to the James Conner thing, where is he one of the slower backs in the league? Is he going to wow you with physical traits? And Bucky Irving as well has a lot of this. I think Bucky's even more shifty than Kyren, and that's a difference maker there. But same idea where, dude, his vision is, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think Kyren Williams has the best vision that I've seen from a running back since Le'Veon Bell. And if you're looking at like the slider bars of what this player's skills are, speed, not that high. Contact balance is pretty good. Power's okay. Shiftiness on Kyren Williams isn't even that high. He's not that good at like juking people out of their shoes or being creative in space. Size, strength, like those are all very low. But the vision is all the way maxed out. And the patience, the consistency he's able to run with, it is so valuable. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this guy gets so many touchdowns either. Like his ability to find those little holes with his size and use that as an advantage, it's a weapon. So I'm a big Kyren Williams fan. I know people get like really excited about the explosive backs and have called Kyren Williams overrated. I just disagree. I think you don't have to, but I certainly respect his skill set. Emmanuel Wilson, he's fine. Put him in the Isaiah Davis, Tank Bigsby category. He's had some good runs. I think I'd put him between those two guys. He's good kind of straight line power threat for Green Bay. And then Jalen Wright, I think, goes in the interesting prospect category. Our last player here, speedy back for Miami. We got to see some good football from him last week against the Jets. I think I will put him above Chris Rodriguez. I'd put him above Dylan Sampson. I like Devin Neal and RJ Harvey more than him, but that's going to do it. We didn't use the poor tier. We didn't. Again, most of those guys, I kind of said that at the beginning. I wasn't sure if we would use that. Most of the guys that would go in this group, the AJ Dillons of the world, I just didn't put on the list because it's, we're already 2 hours into this recording, 90 backs in. We can't talk about every running back rostered in the NFL, but we got pretty damn close with 90 of them. So let me know your guys' thoughts, where I went right, where I went wrong. If I forgot anybody, which is certainly possible, I can try and get them added to the template here, which again, you guys can go and use. Please do hit that like button on the way out. I really do appreciate that as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.